The last 10 months, I have tried pressuring my party to take the issues of anti-Semitism seriously. My fellow Jewish Americans, I'm speaking to you. We are politically homeless. I am going to vote for the president who told us that he will not allow 1 penny of the American taxpayer money to fund anti-Semitic, un-American universities like Harvard, like Columbia, like MIT. And I am going to vote for the president who won't negotiate with Hamas terrorists, will kill Hamas terrorists.
Boom! Good for you. Harvard University alumnus Shabbos Kestenbaum speaking at former President Trump's rally in Uniondale, New York last night. He is a Democrat who says the party has taken the Jewish vote for granted, and he is now voting for President Trump. Shabbos Kestenbaum joins me right now. Shabbos, thank you so much for being here. What did that feel like for you?
It was certainly bittersweet. You know, I'm a Democrat who's only voted for Democrats in the past. This is not something I wanted to do, certainly not something I wanted to say publicly. But to his credit, Trump and the Trump campaign have courted Jewish votes, have made it very clear that they stand with the land of Israel, that they stand with Jewish students fighting anti-Semitism. And we were talking about this earlier. Many of us have become one-issue voters. When Israel is facing an existential issue, when Jews are experiencing record anti-Semitism on our college campuses, there's only one candidate for me, and that's President Trump.
I mean, that's what I said during the commercial break. I've noticed that there is a core group of people who have become one-issue voters, and it is because of this administration's treatment of Israel and this anti-Semitism that is raging. You are part of a major lawsuit against Harvard, alleging the university has failed to punish anti-Semitism on campus after the anti-Israel protests surged on campus, sometimes becoming violent, disruptive, following Hamas's attack on October 7th. A federal judge ruled last month that Harvard must face the lawsuit after it tried to have it dismissed. Fox Digital asked college students around the country about whether anti-Semitism on campus is a concern. Watch this.
Not personally concerned about it. I'm troubled by what I've seen around the country, and I feel particularly bad for Jewish students that face anti-Semitism.
I'm Jewish, so I feel like I have lived it personally, and I've had I do think it's a big issue, especially with teachers.
I went through the protests on accident, and honestly, it was a little scary just because I was just trying to mind my own business and get to class, and people were filming me and yelling in my face.
Shabbos, give us your reaction to that, and also what specifically are you seeing on these campuses right now?
Sure. So let's talk about Harvard specifically. We've had a Jewish student spat on for wearing a kippah. In my case, a staff member taunted me with a machete and challenged me to debate him as to whether Jews were behind 9/11. An Israeli student was told to leave the class because her nationality made others uncomfortable. This is happening at the most prestigious, most elite university in the United States. And then we can talk about Columbia University, where students overtook private property, took maintenance workers hostages, and almost none of them were disciplined. So we have to keep in mind that the only reason so many of us students have a lawsuit, have a legal claim, is because of the executive order that President Trump signed in 2008, reclassifying Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. So now Judaism is not just a religion, it's also a national origin, it's an ethnicity. And because of that executive order, we now have a lawsuit. We're the first lawsuit in American history pertaining to the violations of Jewish students on college campuses that's actually going to trial. And Harvard should be nervous because their behavior the last year has been inexcusable, downright anti-Semitic, and blatantly illegal.
Amazing. Mark, jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, you know, you look at the Democrat Party, and they're all about reparations, to combat racism. Why is racism and bigotry okay if it's against Jews?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And the Senate Judiciary Committee, after a year, finally decided to have a hearing on anti-Semitism. But it wasn't just anti-Semitism. They had to all lives matter the issue, talking about all forms of bigotry and hatred. Jewish people are the targets of 65% of all religiously based hate crimes in the United States. But Senate Democrats can't come up and say that. And it was Senator Dick Durbin and Bernie Sanders, who I'm embarrassed to say I voted for in the past, who were stonewalling this, who refused to allow Jewish students to speak and to testify. And if the Democratic Party wants to keep the Jewish vote that they've taken for granted for so long, they would make efforts to reach out to us. But the Biden-Harris administration has not once met with Jewish students like me. We tried reaching out to them, and they ignored us time and time again.
We are seeing some shift in the Jewish vote, but not as much as I would have expected. When you look at
Oh, really?
I mean, when you look at, and we were just talking about some polling, you saw 60-40. I've seen 65-35. It used to be 70-30.
In favor of the Democrats.
In favor of the Democrats.
Yeah.
But I would expect in this moment that it would be completely different. And
at least 50-50.
What's it gonna take, do you think? Or is that why you're out there talking so
Yeah,
much?
look, in my personal capacity, I'm going to do what I can. I'm now a surrogate for the Trump campaign. I'll be going to Pennsylvania to meet with the Jewish community, speak with them, and alleviate many of their concerns. But I'll say this: the Jewish people, we're a sensitive group. We're very like-minded and liberally minded. We know what it's like to be a stranger, to be a refugee.
Yeah.
And I think our well-placed concerns and our well-placed sensitivities sometimes are kind of hurting us. And I would encourage Jewish voters to really think about the issues and make a good choice in November.
And by the way, Scotty, it's not just college campuses. Anti-Semitism on the rise across the country.
Oh, yeah.
Earlier this week, a protester interrupted Texas Senator Ted Cruz with hateful rhetoric during a Senate hearing on hate. Watch this.
Every Republican member of this committee asked the chairman to hold a hearing on anti-Semitism in February. And yet we don't get a hearing on anti-Semitism. We get a hearing generically on hate because this administration, and this is the kind of anger and hate that is encouraged. You're now seeing the hate manifesting right here. Interestingly enough.
Please, the committee will come to order. The senator is recognized to finish his remarks.
So we now have a demonstration of anti-Semitism. We have a demonstration of the hate.
So instead of doing a hearing on anti-Semitism, they do a hearing on hate. Shabbos.
Well, that protester really demonstrated why you need to have a hearing on anti-Semitism.
In your
exactly.
face.
And I can't imagine that, if someone was saying effing blacks, effing LGBT, that Senator Dick Durbin would really just say, well, the committee will come to order. There would be condemnation immediately. But again, we've seen this double standard when it comes to Jewish people. And to your point, it's not just college campuses. It's the streets of L.A. where Jewish worshipers were prevented from going into their synagogues. It's the subways of New York, and it's our college campuses. And, I've been making this point that in our country, we're sort of allergic to accountability, where there's no discipline, there are no consequences. If you really want to combat anti-Semitism, just enforce the law. People who violate the law, people who commit acts of anti-Semitism, just prosecute them. But we're led by feckless leaders.
Yep, exactly. Thank you so much, Shabbos. Good to have your perspective. Shabbos Kestenbaum.